My name is Fernando Guicciardini. I am a descendant of one of the ancient families from Florence, and the ancient families from Florence were always related to the countryside. So also Castello di Poppiano, where we are now, has an old history related to my family dating back from the 12th century. So it's a very long time, it's a very long history. Obviously I have lived the last part of this history, but certainly one of the most important part of the history, because if you think of what was the agricultural way of living and the agricultural technology here in Tuscany, there is a sort of stagnation between the Middle Age until approximately 50 years ago. We have here a letter from an ancestor of us of the 15th century, who was speaking about what they were growing, how they were growing, but the problem were exactly the same and the perspective were exactly the same. Obviously everything changed dramatically when the style of life and the opportunities for life changed here in Italy, not in Tuscany in particular. Tuscany's agriculture and the agriculture of this place in particular, the Chianti Fiorentini and Montespertoli, were a very, very labor-intensive exploitation. Things changed dramatically when in the 60s, between the 60s and the 70s, new work opportunities were created in towns, and there was practically a sudden abandon of the countryside by many people who remained practically empty. And little by little, the whole production system had to be reconstructed. So this meant changes in the economy, changes in the sociological relationship, changes also in the way of how we managed the production. Changes which reflected obviously in the occupation, in job opportunities, and in practically the way everything was the style of life of the countryside. Now, I have to say something that in the previous period, self-sufficiency was practically the main goal of all Tuscan agriculture. All estate or smaller estate, the sharecropping system was based on the fact that we were producing wine, olive oil, wheat, cattle, poultry, and this practically meant a total self-sufficiency. There were no supermarkets, no shops, nothing. Practically the Tuscan agriculture was totally self-sufficient. And now the big change entailed the fact that some of these activities became marginal. So wheat is marginal. There is no possibility of cultivating wheat here. There is no more possibility of having a livestock, which is at that time was used only as animal draft power instead of tractors. So practically there is now a restriction to olive oil and to wine. which are become practically the main focus of this area, agriculture, in speaking in agricultural terms. Obviously, there are some parts of the municipality of Montespertoli where some cereals are also grown, but not here. Here, growing cereals or growing fodder crops was practically an intercropping in the old system of vineyards not intensively planted and olive trees. So it was an intercropping, and which is now totally abandoned in favor of a specialized cropping. Look, I think that as for every agricultural or every producer who practically sells only its own product, the main asset, I would say, is the link between the product and the territory. In other words, for a wine industrialist, it's not very important that the wine comes from a specific part of the region. Chianti is a wide area. A big industrialist will always be interested in the name Chianti, but his interest in the name Chianti Colli Fiorentini or Chianti Montespertoli is very limited, while on the contrary, for a producer who produces here and who sells the product of this area, it is extremely important to transfer into the bottle, behind the label, part of the territory, part of his way of living. And this is the main difference, and this is what is, and I hope for the future, will be the strength of our production. Obviously, we must do everything we can in order to diversify our way of presenting the wines. The wines are all good, but our wines are not only good, they have a character, and we have to maintain this character. It is extremely important that this message arrives to the final consumer.